Stoicism, an ancient Greek philosophy founded by Zeno of Citium in the early 3rd century BCE, is renowned for its teachings on virtue, reason, and, perhaps most notably, emotional control. At the heart of Stoicism is the belief that a good life is one lived in accordance with nature and reason, and that cultivating inner tranquility and strength is essential to achieving true happiness. Stoics hold that while we cannot control external events, we can always control how we respond to them, particularly through the regulation of our emotions. Emotional control, in Stoicism, is not about suppression or denial of feelings, but about mastery, achieving a state of emotional equilibrium by aligning one's reactions with reason and virtue. #The role of reason in emotional control. For the Stoics, reason is the defining characteristic of human beings and the key to emotional control. Emotions, according to Stoic thought, are not irrational forces that overwhelm us but are the result of judgments we make about the world. In other words, emotions are caused by our beliefs about external events, rather than by the events themselves. For example, if someone insults you, the anger you feel is not caused by the insult itself, but by your belief that the insult has harmed you in some way. The Stoics argue that by changing our beliefs and judgments about external events, we can change our emotional responses to them. This perspective is encapsulated in the famous Stoic maxim, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The Stoics teach that external events are indifferent, neither good nor bad in themselves. What matters is how we interpret these events and how we choose to respond. Through the use of reason, we can examine our initial emotional reactions and determine whether they are based on sound judgments. If our emotions are the result of false or irrational beliefs, we can correct those beliefs and bring our emotions into alignment with reason. The dichotomy of control. One of the central teachings of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control, as famously outlined by Epictetus in his Enchiridion. According to this principle, there are two categories of things in life, those that are within our control, and those that are not. What is within our control are our own thoughts, beliefs, desires, and actions. What is not within our control are external events, other people's actions, and the outcomes of our efforts. The Stoics argue that we should focus only on what is within our control and accept with equanimity whatever happens outside of it. This distinction is crucial for emotional control because most emotional disturbances arise from a desire to control what is outside our power. For example, we may become anxious about the outcome of a job interview, angry at someone's behavior, or frustrated by the weather. In each case, our emotional distress comes from wanting something that is beyond our control to be different than it is. The Stoics teach that by recognizing the limits of our control and focusing on our own responses, we can free ourselves from unnecessary emotional turmoil. By internalizing the dichotomy of control, we can approach life's challenges with greater resilience. If we focus on what we can control, our own attitudes, actions, and responses, we can achieve a sense of peace regardless of external circumstances. This is not to say that Stoicism advocates for passivity or indifference. On the contrary, Stoics believe in taking action where appropriate, but they emphasize that our emotional well-being should not be tied to outcomes that are beyond our control. The Stoic view of emotions as judgments. The Stoics classified emotions into two broad categories: passions, negative emotions, and eupathii, positive emotions. The passions, which include fear, anger, grief, and desire, were seen as irrational responses that arise from mistaken judgments about what is good or bad. For example, fear arises from the belief that something bad is about to happen, while anger arises from the belief that we have been wronged in some way. The Stoics believe that these passions disturb the soul and lead to suffering, and thus should be brought under rational control. On the other hand, the Stoics recognize that not all emotions are harmful. The eupathii, or positive emotions, include joy, caution, and a sense of justice. These emotions arise from correct judgments, specifically, the belief that virtue is the only true good and that acting in accordance with reason is the highest goal. The difference between passions and eupathii lies in the judgments that give rise to them. Emotions based on irrational or false beliefs are destructive, while emotions based on reason and virtue are beneficial. The Stoic approach to emotional control, therefore, involves transforming the passions into eupathii by correcting one's judgments. This process requires constant self-awareness and reflection. The Stoics often practiced prosoche, or attention to the present moment, in order to monitor their thoughts and emotions and ensure that they were in line with reason. When negative emotions arose, they would examine the underlying beliefs and challenge any irrational assumptions. Through this practice, they sought to cultivate emotional resilience and equanimity. The practice of apatheia. A central goal of Stoic philosophy is the attainment of apatheia, a state of being free from the destructive influence of the passions. Contrary to some modern interpretations, apatheia does not mean being devoid of emotion or becoming indifferent to life. Rather, it refers to a state of emotional tranquility, where one is no longer disturbed by irrational or excessive emotions. The Stoic sage, who has achieved apatheia, experiences emotions in a balanced and rational way, responding appropriately to life's challenges without being overwhelmed by them. To achieve apatheia, the Stoics practiced various techniques for regulating their emotions. One such technique was premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils, in which they would mentally rehearse worst-case scenarios. By imagining the possibility of loss, hardship, or death, the Stoics sought to reduce the emotional shock of these events should they occur. This practice was not about pessimism but about preparing the mind to accept whatever life may bring with calmness and rationality. Another technique the Stoics used to cultivate apatheia was viewing things from above, a form of mental distancing. By stepping back and viewing their problems from a broader perspective, they could see that many of the things they worried about were insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe. This cosmic perspective helped them remain emotionally detached from trivial concerns and focus on what was truly important, living in accordance with virtue. The importance of virtue in emotional control. For the Stoics, virtue is the highest good and the foundation of emotional control. Virtue, which consists of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, is the only thing that is truly valuable, because it is within our control and defines our character. External goods, such as wealth, health, and reputation, are considered indifferents in Stoic philosophy. They may be preferred or dispreferred, but they do not contribute to our moral worth or happiness. In the second part of an exploration of Stoicism and emotional control, we delve deeper into how Stoic philosophy addresses specific emotions and life situations, and how its teachings can be applied in modern contexts. The Stoics were particularly concerned with strong, disruptive emotions like anger, fear, and grief, which they viewed as stemming from irrational judgments about the world. By understanding and adjusting these judgments, the Stoics believed that individuals could achieve a state of inner calm and emotional stability, often referred to as ataraxia, a key goal in Stoic philosophy. Stoicism and anger. One of the most destructive emotions, according to the Stoics, is anger. In his essay on anger, Seneca presents a detailed analysis of the causes and consequences of anger, as well as practical advice on how to manage it. Seneca viewed anger as a temporary madness that clouds reason and leads to irrational actions, often with devastating consequences. He writes, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." For the Stoics, anger arises from the belief that we have been wronged and that we are justified in seeking revenge or retribution. However, this belief is based on the false assumption that external events can harm our moral character or our happiness. Stoics argue that anger can be avoided by recognizing that other people's actions are beyond our control and that their behavior cannot harm us unless we allow it to affect our inner state. Instead of reacting with anger, the Stoic responds with understanding and compassion, recognizing that the person who has caused offense is acting out of ignorance of what is truly good. Epictetus, in his discourses, advises, "When someone does you wrong, turn immediately to yourself and examine what capacity you have for governing anger." By focusing on one's own response rather than the external trigger, the Stoic can maintain emotional control and avoid the destructive consequences of anger. Seneca also recommends practical techniques for managing anger, such as delaying one's response to an insult or offense. He advises taking time to cool off before reacting, as this allows reason to reassert itself and prevents impulsive actions. He writes, "The best remedy for anger is delay. Beg anger to grant you this at first, and not forever. After a little interval, you will have more power to deal with it." By creating a gap between the stimulus and the response, the individual can regain control over their emotions and choose a more rational and virtuous course of action. Stoicism and fear. Fear, like anger, is another emotion that the Stoics seek to control through reason. The Stoics believe that fear arises from the anticipation of future events that we perceive as harmful or threatening. However, the Stoics argue that most of what we fear is either beyond our control or not truly harmful. For example, people often fear death, poverty, or the loss of reputation, but the Stoics teach that these are external events that do not affect our moral character, which is the only thing that truly matters. The Stoic approach to fear involves changing one's perspective on what is truly good and bad. According to Stoicism, the only things that are inherently bad are vice and moral corruption, while everything else is indifferent. Epictetus famously said, "It is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of death or pain." By recognizing that external events like illness, injury, or death cannot harm our virtue, the Stoic is able to face them without fear. One of the key Stoic exercises for overcoming fear is premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This practice involves imagining worst-case scenarios in order to prepare oneself mentally and emotionally for whatever may happen. By confronting the possibility of loss, hardship, or death in advance, the Stoic weakens the emotional impact of these events should they occur. Instead of being caught off guard by misfortune, the Stoic is mentally prepared and can face adversity with calmness and resilience. This practice is not about dwelling on negative possibilities but about developing the strength to accept them without fear. In modern terms, this approach can be seen as a form of exposure therapy, where individuals confront their fears in a controlled and rational way in order to reduce their emotional intensity. By repeatedly imagining and preparing for difficult situations, individuals become less fearful and more capable of handling real-life challenges with composure. Stoicism and grief. Grief, particularly in response to loss, is a natural human emotion, but the Stoics sought to moderate this emotion by reflecting on the nature of life and death. Stoic philosophy teaches that death is a natural part of life and that mourning excessively over the loss of a loved one is based on the mistaken belief that death is a great evil. While the Stoics did not deny the emotional pain of losing someone close, they believed that grief should be kept within reasonable bounds and should not overwhelm one's ability to live virtuously. In his letters to Lucilius, Seneca offers advice on how to deal with grief. He acknowledges that it is natural to feel sorrow at the loss of a loved one, but he encourages Lucilius to view death from a broader, more philosophical perspective. Seneca writes, "He whom you loved is dead, but is that any reason for you to die also? Do you wish to forget how great a blessing you enjoyed, because you have lost it?" For Seneca, grief should be tempered by gratitude for the time spent with the deceased and by the recognition that death is part of the natural order. The Stoics also remind us that excessive grief is often a result of attachment to things that are beyond our control. By accepting that death is inevitable and that we cannot prevent the loss of those we love, we can approach grief with a sense of acceptance rather than despair. This does not mean that the Stoic is indifferent to loss, but that they strive to maintain emotional balance in the face of it. As Marcus Aurelius writes in his Meditations, "Accept death in a cheerful spirit, as nothing but the dissolution of the elements from which each living thing is composed." Stoicism and desire. Desire, particularly for things that are outside of our control, is another source of emotional disturbance in Stoicism. The Stoics believe that much of human suffering arises from misplaced desires, wanting things like wealth, power, or pleasure, which are ultimately indifferent and beyond our control. When we base our happiness on external goods, we become vulnerable to disappointment and emotional turmoil, as these things can be taken away or denied to us. The Stoic solution to controlling desire is to focus on what truly matters, virtue and living in accordance with reason. By shifting our desires away from external objects and toward internal moral goals, we can achieve a state of emotional tranquility. This does not mean that the Stoic rejects all desires, but that they seek to align their desires with what is within their control. For example, instead of desiring wealth, the Stoic desires to act justly, wisely, and courageously, as these are things that depend entirely on one's own actions and choices. Epictetus advises, "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well." This teaching reflects the Stoic practice of accepting the world as it is, rather than constantly striving for things to be different. By cultivating contentment with what one has and focusing on living virtuously, the Stoic frees themselves from the emotional turmoil that comes from unfulfilled desires. Stoic techniques for modern emotional control. Stoicism offers a variety of practical techniques for controlling emotions, many of which are applicable in modern life. In addition to premeditatio malorum and the dichotomy of control, Stoics practice daily self-reflection and journaling as a way to examine their thoughts and emotions. Marcus Aurelius, for example, used his journal, which later became the Meditations, to reflect on his actions and to remind himself of Stoic principles. By regularly reviewing their emotional responses and aligning them with reason, Stoics could maintain greater emotional control. Another Stoic practice is the use of mindfulness or prosoche, the constant awareness of one's thoughts and emotions. The Stoics believed that by paying close attention to the present moment and to their internal state, they could catch irrational judgments before they led to strong emotional reactions. This practice is similar to modern mindfulness techniques, which involve observing one's thoughts and emotions without becoming attached to them. In addition, Stoicism teaches the importance of cosmic perspective, viewing one's problems in the context of the larger universe. By recognizing that we are just a small part of a vast and ever-changing cosmos, the Stoic can put their troubles into perspective and avoid becoming overly fixated on personal setbacks. This practice helps to reduce the emotional impact of daily challenges and fosters a sense of acceptance and peace. The relevance of Stoicism in modern life. In today's fast-paced and often stressful world, Stoicism's teachings on emotional control are more relevant than ever. Many people struggle with anxiety, anger, and frustration in response to external events that are beyond their control, such as job pressures, social conflicts, or global crises. Stoicism offers a way to navigate these challenges by shifting the focus from external outcomes to internal attitudes. The Stoic emphasis on accepting what we cannot control and focusing on our own actions aligns with modern therapeutic approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which encourages individuals to challenge irrational beliefs and take responsibility for their emotional responses. By applying Stoic principles, individuals can develop greater resilience and emotional stability, allowing them to face life's difficulties with calmness and equanimity. Furthermore, the Stoic focus on virtue as the highest good provides a powerful antidote to the materialism and consumerism that often dominate modern society. In a world that constantly encourages the pursuit of wealth, status, and pleasure, Stoicism reminds us that true happiness comes from within, from living in accordance with our values and principles. In the second part of the exploration of Stoicism and emotional control, we see how Stoic philosophy provides valuable. Stoicism, an ancient Greek philosophy that gained prominence in Rome, offers profound insights into the nature of human emotions and the cultivation of emotional control. At its core, Stoicism teaches that while we cannot always control external events, we can exercise power over our thoughts and responses. This principle of emotional regulation is central to Stoic practice and provides a framework for navigating life's challenges with resilience and tranquility. One of the foundational tenets of Stoicism is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. The philosopher Epictetus famously articulated this idea, emphasizing that our thoughts, intentions, and reactions fall under our domain, while external circumstances often do not. This understanding is crucial for developing emotional control. By focusing our energy on what we can influence, our perceptions and responses, we free ourselves from the frustration and anxiety that often accompany attempts to control external events. This shift in focus allows individuals to cultivate a sense of agency and empowerment, which is essential for emotional well-being. Emotional control, from a Stoic perspective, does not mean suppressing or denying feelings. Rather, it involves acknowledging emotions as natural human responses while choosing how to react to them. Stoicism encourages individuals to examine their emotions critically, understanding the underlying beliefs and judgments that give rise to them. By practicing self-reflection, we can identify irrational thoughts or cognitive distortions that may exacerbate negative emotions. For instance, feelings of anger or resentment often stem from perceptions of injustice or personal affront. By questioning these perceptions and reframing our thoughts, we can mitigate the intensity of our emotional responses and cultivate a more balanced perspective. Another critical aspect of Stoicism is the practice of premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This technique involves contemplating potential challenges and adversities before they occur. By anticipating difficulties, individuals can prepare themselves mentally and emotionally, reducing the shock or distress that often accompanies unforeseen events. This practice fosters resilience, as it trains the mind to remain composed in the face of adversity. Instead of being overwhelmed by unexpected challenges, Stoics are encouraged to view them as opportunities for growth and learning. This proactive approach to emotional control equips individuals with the tools to navigate life's uncertainties with confidence. Stoicism, an ancient Greek philosophy that gained prominence in Rome, offers profound insights into the nature of human emotions and the cultivation of emotional control. At its core, Stoicism teaches that while we cannot always control external events, we can exercise power over our thoughts and responses. This principle of emotional regulation is central to Stoic practice and provides a framework for navigating life's challenges with resilience and tranquility. One of the foundational tenets of Stoicism is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. The philosopher Epictetus famously articulated this idea, emphasizing that our thoughts, intentions, and reactions fall under our domain, while external circumstances often do not. This understanding is crucial for developing emotional control. By focusing our energy on what we can influence, our perceptions and responses, we free ourselves from the frustration and anxiety that often accompany attempts to control external events. This shift in focus allows individuals to cultivate a sense of agency and empowerment, which is essential for emotional well-being. Emotional control, from a Stoic perspective, does not mean suppressing or denying feelings. Rather, it involves acknowledging emotions as natural human responses while choosing how to react to them. Stoicism encourages individuals to examine their emotions critically, understanding the underlying beliefs and judgments that give rise to them. By practicing self-reflection, we can identify irrational thoughts or cognitive distortions that may exacerbate negative emotions. For instance, feelings of anger or resentment often stem from perceptions of injustice or personal affront. By questioning these perceptions and reframing our thoughts, we can mitigate the intensity of our emotional responses and cultivate a more balanced perspective. Another critical aspect of Stoicism is the practice of premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This technique involves contemplating potential challenges and adversities before they occur. By anticipating difficulties, individuals can prepare themselves mentally and emotionally, reducing the shock or distress that often accompanies unforeseen events. This practice fosters resilience, as it trains the mind to remain composed in the face of adversity. Instead of being overwhelmed by unexpected challenges, Stoics are encouraged to view them as opportunities for growth and learning. This proactive approach to emotional control equips individuals with the tools to navigate life's uncertainties with confidence. Continuing the exploration of Stoicism and emotional control, it's essential to delve deeper into specific practices and their applications in everyday life. Stoicism offers a variety of techniques that can help individuals enhance their emotional resilience, leading to a more balanced and fulfilling existence. One of the most effective Stoic practices is the daily reflection, or evening review. This involves taking time at the end of each day to reflect on one's thoughts, actions, and emotional responses throughout the day. By assessing what went well and what could be improved, individuals can identify patterns in their emotional reactions and the underlying beliefs that drive them. This practice encourages accountability and self-awareness, allowing individuals to learn from their experiences. Over time, this habit can lead to greater emotional control, as individuals become more adept at recognizing triggers and managing their responses. Additionally, the notion of amor fati, or the love of fate, is a vital aspect of Stoic emotional control. Embracing this concept involves accepting everything that happens, both good and bad, as necessary components of life. Rather than resisting or resenting challenges, Stoics are encouraged to view them as integral to their personal journey. This acceptance fosters a sense of peace and reduces emotional turmoil, as individuals learn to align their desires with reality rather than fighting against it. By cultivating a mindset that welcomes all experiences, individuals can develop a profound sense of resilience and emotional stability. Another important technique is the dichotomy of control, which emphasizes the need to focus on what can be controlled while letting go of what cannot. This principle teaches that many of the things we worry about, such as the opinions of others, the outcomes of events, or external circumstances, are beyond our control. By differentiating between what is within our power, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, and what is not, the actions of others, the past, and the future, individuals can reduce anxiety and emotional reactivity. This awareness allows for a more grounded approach to life, where energy is invested in areas that can lead to personal growth and fulfillment. The practice of negative visualization is another effective Stoic strategy for emotional control. This technique involves imagining the loss of things we value, such as relationships, health, or possessions. By contemplating these scenarios, individuals can cultivate a deeper appreciation for what they currently have, reducing feelings of entitlement and anxiety. This practice also prepares individuals for potential losses, fostering resilience when faced with adversity. By recognizing that life is impermanent and that loss is a natural part of existence, individuals can approach challenges with a clearer perspective and greater emotional fortitude. Furthermore, Seneca's teachings on the importance of friendship highlight the role of social connections in emotional regulation. He believed that strong, supportive relationships are essential for maintaining emotional well-being. Friends can provide perspective, encouragement, and accountability, helping individuals navigate their emotional landscape. Stoicism teaches that cultivating meaningful connections is vital for personal growth and resilience, as these relationships foster a sense of belonging and support during difficult times. By surrounding ourselves with individuals who challenge us to grow and who embody Stoic virtues, we can enhance our emotional strength and navigate life's challenges more effectively. In the context of modern life, the principles of Stoicism and emotional control are particularly relevant. Many people today face significant stress from various sources: work, relationships, and societal expectations. The fast-paced nature of contemporary life can lead to emotional overwhelm and a sense of disconnection. Stoic practices offer practical tools for managing these stresses, encouraging individuals to cultivate mindfulness, self-reflection, and resilience. By integrating Stoic techniques into daily routines, individuals can develop a more balanced approach to life, enhancing their emotional well-being. Moreover, the principles of Stoicism can be applied in various professional settings, where emotional control is crucial for effective leadership and teamwork. Leaders who embody Stoic principles can inspire trust and confidence in their teams by demonstrating composure in the face of challenges. By modeling emotional resilience and rational decision-making, they create a culture that encourages open communication and collaboration. This approach not only enhances team dynamics but also fosters a sense of shared purpose and ethical responsibility. In conclusion, Stoicism provides a robust framework for understanding and managing emotions. Through practices such as daily reflection, the acceptance of fate, the dichotomy of control, negative visualization, and the cultivation of meaningful relationships, individuals can develop greater emotional resilience and clarity. These Stoic techniques empower individuals to navigate life's challenges with a sense of purpose and composure, fostering a deeper understanding of themselves and their place in the world. As we embrace these teachings, we can cultivate a life marked by emotional stability, ethical integrity, and the pursuit of wisdom, ultimately leading to a more fulfilling existence. By integrating Stoic principles into our daily lives, we not only enhance our emotional control but also contribute positively to the well-being of those around us.